it's early to date him. I don't think as BDS you choose to come to this map knowing that G2 love it, unless you've been cooking something up behind the scenes. I think they're going to come out with a few surprises for G2.
Yeah, I'd agree. You know, let's not forget Virtue used to play for G2 as well. You know, he's been there with a lot of this roster and knows what the players on Skyscraper might be. I'm sure they're going to have changed a little bit by now, but they're not going to have changed completely. You know, there's going to be a basis there. You tweak, you adjust what you've already got. So we'll see, you know, maybe what knowledge Virtue brings to the table for BDS as well. But yes, I would, you know, fall back to what I said, and that is that it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be a tough one today. You know, G2 looking for the top spot. BDS, of course, already taking a top spot today in Freshers jersey rankings. So, you know, they're maybe the real winners at this point already, Des.
It is a really clean jersey, to be fair.
It's very nice.
One of those that you look at it, and it's not like very esports when you first look at it, like the whole collar thing and the solid color with like grey stripes down it. It looks a bit like non-esporty, but that's why I think it stands out so well amongst the sea of other jerseys. When we're very used to kind of the G2 style, these kind of very aggressive colors, the more like open collar style. I think it's really cool. I love it.
Yeah, I think all the colours have been creeping in, and they give me a very... I grew up with, you know, watching a lot of football, and they give me a very much football in the early to mid-90s kind of vibe. Before, it was kind of early 2000s onwards that football strips went towards that kind of, you know, closed collar, sort of built into the shirt kind of vibe. So, yeah, it does. It gives me a bit of a nostalgic vibe towards, you know, maybe like an Italian shirt in the 90s. You know, maybe a Napoli or an AC Milano or somebody from the mid-90s. So I really like that style. I like all of the jerseys that are like that.
Gonna look back at a bit of recent history. BDS did play Loud back at Reload on this very map, and it probably won't surprise you to hear that they only won 2 of their attacking rounds. Pretty dominant fashion overall by Loud. They'd only go on to win 1 defense as well for Loud to then run away with it, but it was Freck and Robbie that were up in the front lines, doing strong on the entry. For G2, I think as long as they've been aware that this could be a map they were going to today, there's probably also their own counter prep they can do on this based on what they've seen. But all that said, I do also remember speaking to Liloon as well back when we were at Reload and asking, you know, what's your take here? You're bringing out the very best. Like, what's the story? And she said, really, for us, it's more of a warm-up for stage 1. Like, you're not going to see all of our strats. You'll see some, but you're not going to see all of them here at Reload. You'll see us cooking more during the stage itself. And probably at that point now where you're starting to see that build out a little bit more for BDS. I think it'll take a little bit of time for them to really also hit maturity. I think a number of teams are still working through that. They're marinating was the word that I used earlier on. Again, today, I don't think it'll be enough to bring down G2, but I think they'll still put up on a good show, the same way that Wolves did earlier on, despite getting absolutely slapped about in game 1.
I love a bit of marinating, if I'm honest, Des.
A bit of marinating.
I love it. I'm a particular fan of a barbecue, and if you know the weather's coming and you can get some stuff in there marinating for a day or 2, yeah, I'm all about a bit of that.
See, my problem is I really like teriyaki sauce, and most air quotes teriyaki sauce that you can buy in the UK is actually teriyaki marinade. Yeah. I like it when it's the like really thick, like gloopy, super sweet teriyaki sauce, not the really like water thin marinade. That's just not it.
See, I prefer to marinate in a thicker sauce anyway. I'm not really in for for the old watery marinades. I want something nice and thick that's going to stick on there. I want it sticking around when I get it on the grill in the end, you know.
Exactly. So kind of like a bad association with marinating anything, really. Why is Robbie playing in the total darkness, by the way? Man is a mystery of the night. Everyone else got a little bit of daylight on the go.
I spoke about this with them on the game that I covered when Demo had power issues last week. Me and Em covered the BDS game, and we were talking about all the sort of lighting and the scale from like Virtue in the kind of bright light to Robbie who's like in total darkness, and where we sit on the scale.
Well, we just had a little bit of a preview then, and the light was on for all of about a second, and now it's gone again. He was like, nah, that's enough for me. I've seen that light once in the last 12 months. I don't need to see it again. Gone. Who needs light when you can just pop off, I guess?
That's it. You shine bright enough in the server dash. You don't need to worry about the light that you've got inside of your room. And we'll see when BDS are going to be able to shine bright enough. It looks from the screens like we are into things, so we will switch across into our preparation phase. G2 are going to kick things off on the defense, and it's actually going to be an office and exhibition start for us. They're not going to be over in Karaoke and Tea to start with. We're going to see largely similar approach, I would imagine, from BDS on the attack. Generally, what you'll see here on Skyscraper top floor is that teams will try to get into the opposite side from site and work their way across in a top floor clearance. The unique element here is there is an external wall that goes out onto the balcony that we're looking at now. So BDS will likely try and get that open in some sort of fashion so that they've got a bit of pressure going on into site as well.
I've just had it raised to me, it's been brought to my attention that still excites a lot of people watching from home, is that if G2 win this game, it will be a stomping interview. So we finally get to hear from the man himself about how things have been going, his thoughts on the game overall itself. At this point, it's probably the game that G2 are going to lose, just to make sure that can't happen, Tim. BDS certainly be doing the very best for it. As you can see, they start on the attack, as Tim has said. That exhibition off the start is where things kick off. And for now, as you saw, also G2 are quite spread across this top floor. So a lot of layers for BDS to chew through. Very much a time-draining exercise coming out from G2.
G2 have no idea the pressure they're under right now, Des. There could be a riot in the chat if we've teased the stomping interview that doesn't happen. Oh, we'll have to see how it works out. But you know, it'll just be suspense if it doesn't happen. We'll no doubt be waiting for it in future then. So early little look from Stompant across the map. Nobody there to really take too much of a pot shot. Frag manages to find him. We've talked about his fragging capability, and he shuts down the Legion. Quite a big loss for G2 there, actually. Losing those goo mines, of course, you know, build up over time. So there's quite a few of them they're not going to have. Look how aggressive Blaz is being here, but it's actually going to be Doki who manages to hop outside and get the kill onto Virtue. 4 versus 4.
You got the sideswipe here, I think, from Drum. Like, it's good aggression from G2, really looking to keep BDS at bay. And I was partly thinking there might be a bit of a rush coming out from BDS. There were only 2 players on site. They could have gone direct to site and said, forget about dealing with the roamers. We can just hit things straight here, as VP did back on Chalet earlier on. But instead have opted to try and play into this full map clear, force G2 back in towards site, and then look for their execute. But it has been slow progress so far. They've only just got inside of Karaoke. So it's not quite the straight march through the park that maybe they were hoping for.
Robbie has taken some damage on the Demos. Like you say, it's they're down to 2 drones, Des. I think that's the answer. G2 have done a great job of removing that intel away from them. So at the minute, it's kind of like, you know, what do we do? Where do we go? Lawyer manages to peek out, gets himself a nice birthday present, taking down a headshot onto Robbie. So that's 4 versus 3 now for G2. And honestly, Des, I think they close this out from here reasonably comfortably just because of that lack of intel that BDS are working with.
I mean, it's a good trade back from P4 onto Loira, who, as we've remarked several times, has had an incredible stage so far. At the end of the day, though, Tim, it's boiled us down to a 3 versus 3, and the clock does not smile favorably on the attackers when you come down to this point. Freck now down to 1 HP, a second killer trade, in fact, coming back in. Lasmo finds one, but Blaz is there for the trade. Gotta burst their way forwards at this point, and Freck has stepped in. Of course, he's making things happen for his team. He gets to 3K, and BDS take round 1.
Yeah, Freck's done absolutely everything that round, really. Getting those 3 kills has pushed them over the line. Blaz really got caught out there. I don't think he needed to get that aggressive, trying to run back into small bar and get aggressive onto site. Just, he never had a chance to get himself into that gunfight. And there was 15 seconds left on the clock. From G2's perspective, you know, maybe try and make them play, because we've spoke about this before. As soon as in a 2v2, for example, somebody starts putting the diffuser down, you're leaving the other in a 2v1. So really, with 15 seconds left to go, if you can, in that 2v2, just sit back as the defenders force them to play to put it down, and then aggress at the same time and take the 2v1 onto the player that's having to cover. You know, it's not a guarantee, but it should be a possibility. But instead, G2 kind of ran at them a little bit and gave Freck the opportunity, and he doesn't need asking twice. So BDS get themselves the first round, and they kick things off with a great start.
They do, and now rather than going across towards Karaoke and Tea, which was the site I thought we'd see next, instead we dip downstairs into barbecue and kitchen to cook up a tasty morsel for G2 to try and feast their eyes on. It's one of those sites, of course, that you have to clear above normally first and foremost, because defenders will set themselves up upstairs, they'll play the verticals, they'll open up holes in the floor and just punish you if you ignore them and try and hit the site itself directly. Things like Sens, we've already spoke about quite a bit. That operator does enable a lot of cheeky plants to go down even when you haven't got the full vertical control. We seen it happen on the second floor, well, first floor, I guess it is. Again, British-American system, yada, yada. Happens quite a lot on the first floor of Lair. We've seen a good few teams pushing in from green stairs, making use of the sense to get plants down. Here, that's, of course, not the option. What BDS are leaning into is quite a spicy lineup. Got a shield, of course, coming in from the Monty. You've got the Ying Candelas that we've seen all too often to overwhelm, and also looking in towards the Fuse there. Now, Fuse more for the shield these days, but of course, you're always excited at the potential of the gadget. But I think, as you just saw, there was a player stuck on Repel, so we'll go for a quick tech pause and go for a rehost.
Yeah, we'll get that one sorted and get everybody back in. We just saw some very special coverage there, Des, of Jinx's box, which is, of course, the POV of Stomping. He was on the Valkyrie moving across that top floor. Obviously, big supporters. So we will get back in as soon as we can. But yeah, good start from BDS. Very solid. It was reliant on those kills coming in from Freck. That's, you know, something they need to make sure that they're not relying on too heavily, because G2 otherwise may punish them. But the thing that impressed me the most about it, to be honest, I commented on the low intel that BDS had. G2 did a great job on the drones. At the point where I mentioned it, there was only 2 left on the side of BDS. So you're basically going in blind to every gunfight. All those fights that they won, very little information for them to go off, and they were still going in, face checking and winning out those fights. So G2, particularly in the gunfights, going to need to sharpen up a little bit.
It will. Although granted, it's that for those early stages of the game as well, where it takes a bit of time for teams to warm in. Saw it in our games earlier on, like even the last one that we cast as well. Fnatic had an interesting start to the game. Of course, things then changed very, very swiftly, and we got to the point we did where ultimately they found themselves on the losing end of that matchup. But even throughout the day itself, like you've seen some teams having very slow starts, taking a few rounds to really warm into things. Then obviously once they get themselves cooking, things change very, very differently. And in fact, one thing worth noting, Tim, as well, we were speaking about Stomping already, but it is indeed Loira's birthday.
It is.
It's a big happy birthday to Loira, of course. I thought we might see a cake coming out on the desk or something, but I think he'll just settle for the 3 points from this game, Tim.
Oh, I could be more than happy with that. 3 points in the top spot on your birthday. What more could you ask for?
Of course, it was Secret who jumped ahead of him earlier on, but still a nice day for him. No complaints. Looking very alone in the dark. Having to sit through a rehost. It's not the idea of how I'd like to spend a birthday, admittedly, Tim.
Well, it just shows the reality of esports a little bit as well. You know, obviously Loira is located in Europe, but originally from Brazil. So, you know, he's away from his family and his friends and things like that on his birthday. And, you know, it is unfortunately the reality of esports sometimes. It's like, yeah, I've spent quite a few birthdays away from home and whatnot, as, you know, as sort of the job requires. I don't remember the last Valentine's Day I was at home. SI has put pay to that for years.
I was just about to say, the one thing that gets me every year is Valentine's Day, because it's always when SI is, and my missus is always just like, are you going to be home for any Valentine's Day? And I'm just like, no. You'll have to come out with me. It's the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, I'm afraid you're just going to keep on missing these. I don't write the rules. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't remember. I don't remember the last one that I was at home for. It'd be because even before. I mean, I've worked them since 2020, but then attended 2019 as a fan. So we're talking a good 6-7 years since I've been at home for a Valentine's Day. It always costs me. I will say that. You know, a nice present and whatnot is required to make up for my absence. Of course, you know, Vicky certainly sees that opportunity. But
is that the unspoken rule? Like, you know, it has to be a thing, or is she putting pressure on you to say, nah, you've got to sort this?
She's never mentioned it in the slightest.
But you know, if you didn't do it, you'd be dead.
I think there could be some trouble if I didn't get her something nice with being away. So I always make sure that I do.
Well, Alamau, as you can see, has disappeared. Another toilet break. Most likely. I won some of those earlier on. I think it was Savage who had to disappear. Happens sometimes in the middle of the game. Nature does call. Should be able to get things back underway in just a moment. Only really just getting started working with this game. Of course, it's worth the stress. Only seen the one round so far, so give it some time and we'll get ourselves moving again.
Yeah, I think I was going to say I think we might be looking good there, but we're on Dorky's desktop, so maybe not looking like we're immediately going in at the second, but we will be just as soon as we can be. But yeah, you know, it swings and roundabouts with the esports lifestyle, isn't it? You know, you get to see amazing places and travel around the world and essentially just are very fortunate to, you know, make a living enjoying this, you know, this fantastic game that we fell in love with. But yeah, at the same time, it does come, especially for the players, you know, more so than anybody, with a lot of sacrifices. Obviously, I spoke to, you know, I had the opportunity to speak to Dorky's mum in an interview we saw a couple of weeks ago on the first play day, actually, and it was really fascinating to get to speak to his mum. She was brilliant to talk to, and you know, one of the things that she said is, you know, obviously there's a lot of the fantastic things that go with it. She said, but you know, something that people don't always see is the difficulty and the sacrifice, you know, for the players, the family events that they miss, you know, all these things when they're scrimming and playing and everything's, you know, like really full on. I know we've both spoken to Fabian and Pengu over the years on the talent team when they've been with us, of course, and, you know, heard about the hours and the work and the grind that went into that G2 success story, Penta into G2. You know, it really is, you know, a true dedication from the players.
A lot of sacrifice gets made. It's one thing Doki actually always said was he still lives near home now. Of course, he's got his own place, but he still sees a lot of his like friends that he's grown up with as well. And I think that's probably something that's kept him quite grounded, and very much the character that he is today is he isn't off by himself somewhere, and the only thing he doesn't know is the team. Like, he does also have a life outside of it, and I'm sure there are plenty of players that do. I mean, Cryan, also a former player that we know very, very well. I think you only have to look at his Twitter these days and know that he is probably the henchiest Rainbow Six Siege player
he's been in the gym.
Ever see.
He's been in the gym, Des. That's what
you could say
doing.
He's been in the gym. That's a very light way of putting it to him. He's been murdering that gym.
He's gained a bit of time with not having the scrims, and he's gained a lot of muscle with having the time in the gym.
Even when he was playing, he was still massive.
Yeah, he definitely. Cryan's always been one that you know, was obviously took care of himself, and he was, you know, very keen on his fitness and everything else. But yeah, he's certainly ramped that up to another level since he stopped playing.
I think Anderson's a similar story, of course, over in Japan, also pretty big himself. Saw him posing around the pool back at Reload, enjoying himself. There's some pictures out there in the wild, but we are good to get back into game now. Thank you very much for sticking with us, guys, and sorry about the delay. Round 2, back underway once more, starting things down here in Kitchen and Barbecue. Last time around we had this interesting setup coming out that by the looks of the BDS is largely going to stick in towards the Ying, the Fuse, the Monty coming along, double shields, lots of aggression, and of course if you get that vertical control above, which is necessary for this site, well, those fuse charges can do a fair bit of work on any utility or unfortunate operators that happen to be hanging out below.
10 seconds left.
Okay then, it's going to be, as you said, kitchen barbecue, but it's going to mean clearing as if it was tea and karaoke. So BDS will want that top floor control, likely come in from the office exhibition side and work their way across, as I spoke about earlier. That top floor clearance, make sure you've got control, make sure you've got it locked down, and then you can move on to start. Interestingly, seeing the Fuse coming in from Lasmo. We've seen a bit more Fuse lately. And again, you know, people may be starting out playing the game, a little bit newer to the game, may well assume that Fuse is there about getting kills, about, you know, those explosive pucks, finding players inside a site and getting those kills. And it's really not the case at all. If you get one, great, it's a bonus. But Fuse's main job is to clear out utility, and it's to create space, because you're forcing players away from an area and you're taking out all that utility as you do it. It'd be great at dealing with the clash shield, for example. So I'd expect to see a little bit of that. But saying that, Virtue has just dashed in behind the Candelas and is putting the diffuser down and has made it stick, Des.
And they're all out of there. We've got a full diffuser plant stuck, and every single player is still alive. That is absolute madness. That is a bank robbery, Tim, of what BDS have managed to pull out here in round 1, and G2 look absolutely bewildered, stomping, as you can see on the left of your screen, trying to do what he can on the clash, but I think G2, Tim, have got themselves a bit too much to do.
Lasmo does manage to just turn around, use that shield on the Fuse to find a kill onto Blaz. A couple of kills come in from G2 though. The fight back is on, but with 6 seconds left to be able to have time to disable that diffuser, it's unlikely to happen. Lasmo finds another 3v1, and that is that. BDS close out another round, 2-0, and that was true shock and awe. I was talking about how they were going to use the Fuse, maybe from above, maybe clear out that utility, force players to move around, pick a couple of them off as they do, but they saw the opportunity and they dived at the chance to get inside a site and put that diffuser down. Great stuff from BDS, and G2 right now are reeling a little bit.
I said before we got into the map that I would doubt we would see BDS, as much as they like this map themselves, I doubted we'd see them bring G2 here unless they had a game plan in mind. And across those first 2 rounds, first one, the plan was Freck go kill. That second round execute, though, was absolutely excellent. And a lot of the work, kind of, obviously, we've just seen him on screen as well. Lasmo, Loki a little bit blind here in the second kill, but he's got 2 kills from that spot. He's been applying pressure coming in from Pantry side. Just really set BDS up there to make sure that plant went off. And they've pulled, again, a bank robbery off there. All 10 players still alive 5 seconds after the diffuser has gone down.
Yeah, this is starting to become a little bit of a problem for G2. Just having a look at the overall map stats for Skyscraper. 55% defensive win rate, so similar to what we see on Bank that I spoke about earlier. So G2, they're going to be massively on the back foot if they don't get themselves the next 4 rounds, really. We saw it happen in the Secret Fnatic game. Secret on the attack managed to get 3, moved on to the defense, and then showed why there was a 55% defensive win rate on Bank. If BDS come out and do the same in the second half, G2, their only hope is to get the 4 rounds here and then give themselves an opportunity to stay in the game when it gets tougher on the attack.
Yeah, really feel like they've got to find this round now and get their game moving. Otherwise, it is going to be calamitous for them. We've already seen Virtus Pro falling foul of it tonight. Could BDS be the second team that hands a defeat to one of our top 4 giants in the league that many say are the ones that are definitely making it? I mean, BDS still, G2 still will, but for BDS, it'll be a massive 3 points to take off one of those top dogs. As we start here, though, Tim, we are about 45 seconds in. No one's gone down yet. Swing surely comes through here, but no. Freck, a little bit too terrifying to face off against, I think. And those 2 players that were hanging at the top of Black, not going to bother swinging him.
He's got the glass of Robbie working on that karaoke window as well. Smoke grenades will go in. We can hear the candelas going off. There is no plant going down yet. They're not in a position this time to follow that utility in. Instead, just trying to dislodge and disrupt this G2 defense. Lyra is going to punish Freck, and that is a big one to pick up. We've seen the start that he's had so far, but Virtue manages to find Doki. Trades it out 4 versus 4.
Smoke on the door should at least force stomping back a little bit here so far. G2 have held them at bay, Tim. We've had a lot of smokes going off. In fact, all 6 have now been used from the back pockets of BDS. They are out of utility. Robbie won't be able to pop off the same way that he would, but it shows really good patience from G2. Playing quite safe, but making sure there is enough challenge there to keep these players at bay. The last Dokkaebi call comes on through here. After that, they're just going to have to push forward and take gunfights, Tim.
Yeah, Stompen's in an important position here. He's really preventing this attack from moving across that top floor, but it's not going to be easy for him to stay in position. He does actually have a little bit of support. I think it's Lyra that's just on Overwatch. Stompen manages to find the first. Blaz onto P4 as well, and that looks like G2 could be heading towards their first successful round. Blaz manages to find another. Will Stompen pick up the last? No! Virtue cuts him down, but 3 versus 1. It's unlikely he does much more in this round.
Yeah, for G2, it's been a really good, that's a nice shot. Alaval stepped into that on a beautiful pre-fire as well. But you could say Virtue knows him just a little bit too well at this point. The only worrying thing is for G2 is Blaz is a slither of HP. A single bullet will be enough to see him gone. And then it's a 1 versus 1 against Lyra. That would make things very interesting.
He's got a little bit of intel as well. We can see the yellow ping coming out to tell him that there's one inside a T. 15 seconds left to go, as you say. That's going to be the problem here. G2 just need to play this smart and force him on in. He's just trying to bait him out with a little bit of sound there. He knows exactly where this player is. He just doesn't know which way they're facing and doesn't really want to take the challenge. And Blaz, even if he is low health, still manages to find his man. G2 get around and they get the ball rolling.
Yes, much better round overall. I think Virtue there obviously was desperate to try and bait the swing that just never seemed to come. But for G2, again, for me, it was establishing this line, knowing where their power positions were and saying, cool, we hold these. And because BDS have put so much into trying to get the Glaz on towards that karaoke window with all the smokes going down, when they got nothing from that, they had no other utility to use elsewhere. They couldn't clear, for example, the Keybers that were set up around Drum. If they exposed themselves to shoot them, Stomping swings in, gets himself a bit of a freebie. So it was a good hold from G2, read the situation well, and dealt with that early pressure from BDS. And beyond that point, it was a very nice, slow, easy close for them.
Yeah, muted on TeamSpeak, Ramon. Yeah, Mike.
Okay, guys, let me speak. Look, guys, let's go for exhibition turtle and let's play for impact trick the bridges, okay? Like, so like put both mirrors like in the office bridge and also in the VIP bridge, okay? Like, so like if they can do the same. If they do the same, you're gonna win the round like we always do. And if they go for like a direct attack, we're gonna be annoying with these things on the bridge, and we're gonna deny time on them. Okay. Also, guys, like I don't know if you practice the hit take from background, but
Outside of some technical issues around being muted at the very, very start, Tim, some words being offered there.
Yeah, very specific. You know, we often talk about the different types of tactical timeout that we have. You know, is it just about the team's energy? Is it, you know, more specific? And obviously there we're getting very, very specific input in that G2 tactical timeout about, you know, playing with the impact tricks, playing in these specific ways, you know, talking about very specific setups. So we'll see whether that can have an impact or not. I said it was a better round from G2. They were much more in control throughout that one. Stompin's position was particularly important, as I said, inside a drum, and he managed to win that first gunfight out. Blaz got one at the same time, and that really sort of broke the back of that attack coming in from BDS. So G2 this time around, they need a much better hold here in Office and Exhibition. It was, you know, for me, BDS, Freck cut them in half, found 3 kills in the round, you know, was on rappel and found one coming into sight. He was very mobile around the map. G2 need to be careful that they're not losing bodies all over the place, but also, like I said, in that last 10-15 seconds, force them to play the game if you're in that position. Force them into the 2v1 when they have to put the diffuser down on the ground. Don't just be running back into sight and giving it to them. You know, hopefully they're going to be a little bit more calm, a little bit more prepared.
Well, Robbie's relationship with Glaz isn't quite over yet. Sticking on it once again, though. His team aren't maybe quite seeing the same things that he is. Not running around with 6 of those smokes in back pocket this time around. There's more work to do, and here we go. The soap now coming in as this Forces VIP wall. Hasn't quite been baited away there. They'll impact it off as well. The wall stays closed for now, and it's going to be very tough to get that open without any ranged hard destruction, because they're at a point where you go and chuck that exothermic on there. Guess what? You're probably getting swung on by someone. So that VIP wall, although it's got a hole in it, a lovely mirror-shaped hole in it, it's still going to stay closed here, meaning that we won't be seeing BDS push through it anytime soon.
Freck once again picking up that opening kill and kicking things off here on the top floor attack. This is exactly what BDS were able to do last time around, so it could be a little bit of deja vu creeping in for G2. They just need to make sure that the round doesn't end the way that it did last time, but BDS are going to be more than happy with that and thinking, let's have a little bit more of the same. BDS still sort of posturing around the outside of the map. We can see, I think it was Robbie working onto the rappel. Lasmo just up towards Shrine window. Needs to be, I was going to say, needs to be careful he doesn't get jumped out on, but if he does, there's a double claymore there. So Blaz, unless he dumps that nitro out of the window first, he better keep himself inside.
Yeah, dead to rights if he dares make a step wrong there, I think. So that's why Blaz is being patient. You saw this from G2 in the last round. Let's not forget, though, they were very happy to hold key positions that they considered to be power positions. Around Shrine is certainly one of those. Of course, the window itself maybe not quite a power position, but hoping to get a freebie off the back of it. Certainly not a bad spot to be in. Now BDS is starting to circle. Again, though, to be mindful, they've only got rid of Alamal so far. You've still got a couple of players dancing around the map a little bit here, admittedly now working their way back in towards site, but it's not all clear just yet.
Robbie manages to find Lyra, and again, the round continues to slide in the favour of BDS. It was exactly the same last time, as they were just able to grind down G2, but Blaz steps out with a swing and finds himself a double Stompin. Piles on the pressure, and it's 2v2 in a matter of heartbeats.
Fantastic recall control from Glaz as well. Oh, from Blaz, sorry. Absolute magic when you got that Vector. It kicks up like a mule, but it's found 2 headshots and keeps the team dangerously close. Only 20 seconds to go here. Stompin getting the finish kill off with a down off the back of that smoke, and now Robbie, I don't think he can do it all by himself here, Tim. This Glaz is a bit of a slow-moving juggernaut. We'll try and find what he can, but on the clock alone, I'm pretty sure this round is chalked.
Yep, no choice really, other than to just try and stick that diffuser down. Nitro comes out, won't find its mark, but Stompin will, and that's going to be the final kill. Blaz and Stompin absolutely dominating the round, and G2 managing to close things up 2-2. It didn't look like it was going to be the case throughout the round, but we just had that magic moment from Blaz and Stompin where they managed to get 3 kills in a matter of heartbeats, and it really turned things on its head for G2. So they level things up, and all of a sudden, I said they needed 4 rounds. They've managed to find 2 with 2 more to go.
little bit of breathing room at the very least. Starting to get a bit worried for them when they found themselves down 2-0, but G2 have awoken. We spoke about this earlier on, that sometimes teams just need a couple of rounds to build themselves into the game, and I feel like you're now starting to see that. I think BDS almost like paid a bit of a price there as well, not going for that full clear. They did like everything it felt they needed to. For example, the shrine window being taken out, you assume that will scare someone away. They know there'll be claymores there. They know you can only have minimal impact, but Blaz planting his feet and choosing that perfect moment to swing out was absolutely instrumental. If he was already back on site at that point, they get Dragon for free. Stomping's under pressure. They can't healthily contest anyone. Pushing in through to that mini bar and in towards site itself. Real smart heads-up play, and BDS there leaving that one small part of the map unchecked is what's arguably cost them that entire round.
Moving on to round 5 then, G2, as I said, really they need 4 back-to-back, so 2 of them are done, 2 more to come. This time they're going to be holding on to Master Bedroom. Not too often that we see this site. It's going to be a lot more of the same, trying to hold on to Office and Exhibition up above like they did last time around. But certainly not fancying Kitchen Barbecue again after BDS last time just threw themselves in through the window like a missile and put that diffuser down on the ground. We do see, I'll clarify Dez's excitement there at the new Valkyrie skin that we've got in the game. It is beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's very, very funky. I'm not going to make him a great shooter, though, Tim, is the problem. Sat at 1-3 at the moment. He really needs to try and apply some pressure here. It's about wasting time as best he can. And, of course, we've got these step-on forwards now with Blaz the first to fall. A phone call coming in from the Dockerby, the first of 2 that can come out during the round. This should at least force G2 back momentarily. Alamal's still dug in deeper, and he knows that there's a second player looking to round onto him. Now stepping himself away. Just knows that his time was up there. Could not afford to hang around much longer.
Yeah, BDS with a nice advantage here, starting to take a bit of map control as well, forcing G2 back into those tough positions. Lyra is going to be holding on to reception for the time being, but the pressure will mount as Robbie starts to move forward. Might find himself in an engagement sooner rather than later. He can move around either way here, either go through storage or move through restaurants. So Lyra needs to be very careful. He could be pushed from either way. He was careful. Takes down Fret, keeps himself in position, but no, P4 is there for the trade. 4 versus 3, 1:20 left on the clock. BDS, I was going to say looking good, but it's that man again. Stomping steps up 5-2 now as he manages to take down Robbie.
All right. Still plenty of time with which to get this done for either side, and not forgetting the Deimos being on side. The strength in that operator grows, the less players rob. He's about to walk in blind. This is always the danger, Tim. You get baited into it. You see the track and you think, yeah, cool, he's alone, he's all mine. But no, a second player hanging nearby can give you this exact outcome. P4's all alone. Stomping gets the closing kill yet again. And G2 now, for the first time this game, are in the lead.
It might have sounded like a big ask 3 rounds ago, Des, when I said that G2 needed 4 rounds in a row to finish defense with a 4-2 scoreline, 55% win rate. For the defense we generally see on Skyscraper. So G2 need to be taking that advantage. It sounded like a big ask, but not anymore. They've got 3 out of the 4, 75% of the way there. They just need to find 1 more. And they've got a good choice of sites. They can go to TO Karaoke. They can go to Kitchen Barbecue again if they wish. Up to them. But if they can lock this out, it really puts BDS on the back foot. G2 started this one slowly, but I think this is much more of what we expected to see from them on Skyscraper.
Yeah, as I've said a few times now, it takes a couple of rounds to get warmed into it at points. The big question mark for me, Tim, is going to be that second half, though, and how they fare on the attacking side. I'll say it again, as I do every single game. 2 halves to a game of Siege. You could see a very, very solid BDS coming out on defense and a very, very limp G2. That's the way that it could pan out. So we'll see how things go once we're over this final hump in this first half, and we'll see if BDS can make it 3-3. I imagine based on those first 2 rounds, they'll feel like they're justified asking for a 3-3 at this point, but you've still got to step forward and earn it.
Locate a bomb and defuse it.
Okay, then final defensive round for G2 coming up. I like the use of the Goyo. We see how I think it's an operator that's present a lot, and it's obviously an operator that we speak about, but I don't know if Goyo's impact is not understated, but maybe overlooked sometimes. You know, we talk about the Vulcan canisters, but they are absolutely devastating if they're used well and not cleared out. I'm looking at the attacking side and I'm looking, how are they going to clear them out? They don't have a Twitch. They don't have anything to, you know, other than going in and shooting themselves, they don't have anything to be able to deal with those fire canisters. So right now, G2 have got this huge amount of time wasting in areas that they want it. Specifically, they can just shut down lanes, shut down avenues of attack for, you know, significant periods of time. They just need to hold on until that late round where they're going to be the most impactful. Robbie, however, does manage to take down Alamo. That's the mute gone off the board. Not ideal for G2.
No, I mean, they started out losing the entry in quite a number of these rounds, though. Timmer managed to fight their way back in. Blaz certainly playing his part in making that happen. Robbie, of course, stepping away from that Glaz, and it's had a pretty tough half, truthfully. It's been down to the rest of his team to get those 2 rounds on the board. Not quite that top fragger that we're used to seeing from him, at least last season, back when he was on Falcons.
There you go. In comes the first Falcon canister, maybe a little bit soon. G2 not really having too much of an option because the pressure is starting to mount here. Even in a 4v4, BDS are really starting to push forward using that utility. Stomping having to drop back down drum stairs as well. Freck finding Lyra. As I say, pressure mounts and continues to do so. But they're just being held at bay by those Falcon canisters. Give Stomping an opportunity. Can he find himself a kill here? He does do damage to Freck. Can he find... It's Glasmo, I believe, that's on that Geisha wall right now. Stomping he's got his finger in the crack of the dam, Des, that's trying to burst. He's just holding back the water.
He is. I mean, to be fair play to Stomping, he's been bouncing around back and forth around drum to challenge both angles here to keep BDS at bay. Has now dropped himself downstairs and may have done so at the wrong time. Doki steps across for 1. It's ring around the roses, gets the second, and now Stomping has got to recover into a 1 versus 1 against Virtue. New versus old. Who comes out on top?
30 seconds left to go, so he can't necessarily rely on just holding on for time here. Virtue has the case in hand and can play for a plant if he wants to. I think for now, he's just using that time, using that experience to try and bait out a push from Stomping, but he's playing this well, Des. He's burning seconds. Half of the time is already gone. If Virtue doesn't stick this, Stomping really well played, not going for it, but the challenge comes. He's got to win the fight. He does! Really well played there. He just managed that 1v1 beautifully. He didn't get baited out when the case starts going down. He waited for his opportunity. He waited for Virtue to push. And when he did, he won the gunfight that he needed to. Really well played from the rookie. G2 get themselves 4 in a row to take the defensive half that they needed.
He's thought in chat then for a second. New Gen Jake or Virtue. Just... it must sting a little bit for Virtue. That's 2 1v1s now that he's come out on the losing side of. Like, you're in that spot, you back yourself as a world champion to be able to win out at least one of them. But unfortunately, hasn't quite been able to. G2 up to a 4-round win streak, and now we swap sides. They go on the attack, and we'll see what they can deliver. But first, as you can see, it's our operator bans. Thermite, the first one to be taken away by BDS, and the second one to follow is going to be that Ace going in for the double hard breacher ban. The other side, it's all about the element of electricity being taken away.
G2 straight away are going to be challenged from the off as to how do you go about your breaching. It depends where they're attacking as to how impactful those bans are going to be on Skyscraper. Just seeing that final shot again from more than hitting the final shot, you know, that's a 50-50 gunfight. Players will win and players will lose them. But for me, I think, like I said, it was the way that Stomping managed the 30 seconds. There was actually 35 seconds on the board for that 1v1, and it is not an easy situation to be in as the defender, because the last thing you want is that case to go down, because if Virtue is able to plan, you're all of a sudden having to play the role of attacker. You're the one who has to play into their line of sight. So for Stomping to sort of sit on his hands a little bit and think, I'm not going to push here, and to no doubt hear the diffuser going down, give it a couple of ticks, and no, I'm still not going to play into it, and kept himself in the advantage. So Virtue had to play into his line of sight. Really, really well managed from him. It would have been easy to be kind of baited into that fight, you know, and taking it on Virtue's terms, but he didn't, and it was well played. But yeah, coming into this second half now, G2 not having a hard breach available, or, you know, one of the 2 key ones. They're going to be using Hibana, they're going to need to use Maverick or those secondary hard breach gadgets. Skyscraper, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You know, there's office balcony, maybe. Would you call that an essential breach? I'm not sure I even would, to be honest. You know, I think most sites you can get away without breaching. Geisha wall can be a particularly important one to take out. But otherwise, I think they certainly... I'm not saying it's ideal, you know, I'm not saying... But they're winnable. The sites are winnable.
Was Doki having an epileptic fit then? I'm not quite sure what was going on for the first. Like, throwing a nade at Stomping definitely ain't the one. If he was sat on drone there, he's probably dead to rights. But hey, yo, almost in March. Virtue falls. Alamau collecting him. They've lost the Capitão in the process, though. Not super ideal for G2 to have lost such a critical operator. But you could say the same about losing a smoke Tim. A very key operator for wasting time on this site.
4 versus 4 does. 1 kill goes either way. No real advantage to anybody as of yet. Alamau is going to send out the light screen and just look to have a little bit of a push up to the top of Black Stairs in behind it. May now be able to start creating a position to get in and put the diffuser down. This is clever use of those light screens. He's blocking off all those long angles onto the plant spot and he's going for it. And I don't think BDS have got any knowledge because G2 have just created so much noise around it. Stompin is trying to pressure with that Blackbeard, but absolutely slammed by Freck onto the stairs, going for a second, gonna find it, manages to take down from Doki. 1 versus 4, BDS on a serious retake. Can Blaz hold on? He's been on a big day so far, but they're already on the disable of the diffuser. He's too late, it's done. BDS win the round.
Nothing he can really get done there, and Freck, very understandably, no. G2 just being completely deleted behind. The pressure from top Black eviscerated by Freck there with that double kill. And on it rolled from there. I was a bit worried, to be fair, because P4 missed the initial cross that could have stopped that plant going down. Missed the second man as he stepped across, and I thought, man, he really ain't up to it on them reaction times today, is he? But gets a big 2K once he steps out into the corridor. That combined with Freck's 2 shuts the round down entirely. Good stuff for BDS, keeping G2 at bay, even in the post plant.
Yeah, it was very good from them. I think, for me, I think G2 were a little bit too quick at putting that plant down. I like how they worked it. You know, the light screens creating the space for Alamau to go in and plant it, but it was very early in the round, and I'm just not sure that they were quite set, ready for that plant to go down. I'm not sure that they cleared enough utility. You know, maybe get a kill or 2 more, get yourself into a man advantage situation before starting to put that plant down, because it was just all a bit too rushed for me, and I think G2 have been punished for that. You know, it is one of the risks that you take with a quick plant. Quite often they will go down, but you're leaving the defenders numbers to be able to work back at you. So a good round from BDS. G2 here, of course, you know, looking for 2 rounds as a minimum. They want to secure at least overtime. You know, they will want more than that, but it's a good start for BDS.
Obviously, a key one, Tim, is they've been absolutely dominating on the entry despite losing the majority of rounds so far. It's crazy. They've only lost the entry in 1 round when Laura managed to find Freck. Outside of that, Freck set up at 3-0 on the entry. They're just absolutely laughing with the early rounds, but it's the conversion that is biting them. We saw this in our games earlier on today as well. You'd expect most teams to be able to convert from a 5 versus 4 and turn that advantage into a round win, but it isn't always guaranteed.
Beautiful use of the Hibana there from G2. It's something that I often comment on.
The rat.
When we've had those hard breach bans, being able to effectively use your Maverick to do something like that, or being able to use the Hibana to take off that top and bottom and just maximize the efficiency of that utility. Well played from G2, but as you say, the Warden could play real spoiler. They're going to be chasing them around here, though, as the shield goes in. Alamau on the Blitz, knows his man is there, has to bring the shield back up, but Robbie is there to deal with it. Blitz taken down, and again, the G2 attack is crumbling.
Alamau just largely sat there waiting for the sun to set. Unfortunately, Tim, it gave time for BDS to reposition. Blitz's advantage is that speed, the ability to flash and be aggressive. But as much as they've tried to do it, he's basically paused there in a very difficult position. Either way, BDS, they keep on rolling with the punches here, keeping up the kill advantage they've got. It's into a 4 versus 3, and Doki's the one trying to be a difference maker, hoping to stab someone here at the back, but hasn't yet found anyone. I'm pretty sure Lasmo is still laid down, by the way. He hasn't moved. Kayla Light has moved down to the other side of the wall. He's got a kill from lying down either way.
Still gets his man. Doki taken out. Blaz on low health as well. Not looking good for G2 here. BDS have done this the right way, coming straight onto the defense, getting themselves what looks like it's going to be 2 rounds, leveling up the score, and then they can go to that 3rd choice site, and they've got an opportunity to give themselves the advantage. Robbie with the final kill. 4-4 we find ourselves now. If BDS are able to win this 3rd choice site, it's going to be downstairs. It's likely to be kitchen and barbecue, I would guess. If they go there and win it, G2 are on a serious back foot because BDS can just win the top 2 floor sites again.
would be the offside, mind you, which I think you'd expect G2 to come away on, but I'm with you. If they lose this one, then you really start to worry for them.
The way BDS have defended them too, I don't know. I think they've been fantastic.
They've great. Yeah, I agree. And a lot of it, honestly, has come down to those early round entries too. Like I say early, it's come down round about the 60 to 70 second mark into the round, but they are consistently getting the entries. G2 here are just bleeding players too early on in far too many occasions and paying the price because they're always then trying to play catch up. BDS showing themselves not to be slouches here that are going to give away a round advantage. It's looking really good for them. And now we've got to see G2 really put the rocket boots on and figure out how they get through this one, because not forgetting back in the first half, BDS had a wonderful execute onto this site, making use of a couple of shields and all the rest of it. G2 don't quite look to be cooking the same.
Got the Frost Mats on the side of Virtue. As we know, they catch out more than you might think. At pro level, you can be forgiven for thinking, well, they'll never get caught out by Frost Mats. But because the gunfights are so intense and so quick that they're coming into, quite often these players will be ADS'd when they're going through windows, when they're coming around corners, upstairs, and it just restricts their view. And if they've not been thoroughly droned out, which shouldn't be an excuse for G2 at the minute, they've still got 9 drones on site. But if that work hasn't been done, they can quite often stray into one of those Frost Mats. But we can see now quick work being done by Blaz, who's having a great game actually so far. 8 and 4. He's had some really big moments that have helped win rounds for G2, and they could do with a couple more of those big moments.
It's a rare quiet game for Lawyer, isn't it? Like, he had his moment where he hit a naughty shot earlier on back in the first half, but outside of that, he's been very much invisible. He's our 3rd highest rated player in the whole competition at the start of the day. Certainly been showing what he can do this stage, though this game has been quiet, so it leads to asking who else steps up. And yep, Blaz is one. And there comes Laura as a speak his name to speak it into existence. Reload. 2 kills for himself. Freck, and number 1 rate in the league gone. And also going to see Lasmo falling by the wayside.
Exactly the start that G2 needed. They have to find these offsites as an absolute minimum. They need 2 attacks to take them into overtime. And by getting the offsite, maybe it starts putting a little bit of pressure back onto BDS as well. Robbie takes down Stomping in the last of a whole bunch of kills that have come in, mostly in the favour of G2. 4 versus 2 they stand at the minute. Robbie and P4 are battling a beautiful pistol shot, but it's not going to do any more than prolong the inevitable, as it's 3 versus 1. P4 has got an absolute fraction, a sliver of health. He's a breath away from death, and G2 now are on the hunt. They're looking for him. They know roughly where he is inside a storage. He manages to hit a beautiful shot through the softball Des. This is a 1v2.
They've got a Deimos trap. They can find out where he is here. That's what I was going to say. Just pause for a moment, guys. You've got over a minute to play with. Get the track on. Now you know exactly where he is. You can try and shoot him through the softball if you really want here, but that should open up your other player to go and make a plan happen. Problem is, they haven't got the diffuser, and no way has Loira potentially just gifted this, and then comes Doki. Good old Reliable, when you need him most, steps in and gives G2 the round, because, Tim, you were worried about what would happen if they lost this one. They came nail-bitingly close to it.
I was sweating then, let alone G2. It was 1 HP and a dream from P4. And he managed to get that all the way back to a 1v1, much closer than it should have been. But G2, importantly, in the grand scheme of things, when we look at this matchup, managed to get themselves the offside. So that kind of poises us ready for going to overtime. G2 need to come out and win one of those primary choice sites if they want to avoid that. But given the way that BDS played rounds 7 and 8, the way that they were able to command those first choice sites, G2 have certainly got their work cut out.
Love that pistol shot from Robbie as well. Deagle. It's this terrifying moment where really there's no excuse for Laura losing that there. He had to be killing P4. He had the real-time track. It's a bit of a blessing that Doki was there ready to come in and save the day. G2 up to 5 and 4, a couple more rounds, and they'll steal this up and take all 3 points. But something tells me there's yet to be another twist in this tale. I don't anticipate it's going to be two straight rounds for G2 here. I think BDS going to find themselves back on the board, and then overtime could be abound.
Yeah, that's my feeling for this matchup at the minute, is that BDS win the next two and then fail to win the offsite, and we see a few extra, which I wouldn't complain about because this has been a great matchup so far. I'm really enjoying this. I think it's been, you know, good quality siege, some really good individual moments. Blaz, Freck, both having really big plays, really, you know, big opportunities that they've taken. So yeah, great entertainment so far. We get into round 10. Going to be back up to those first choice sites. We will see Karaoke T, I think it is this round, and then it'll be followed by Office and Exhibition most likely. BDS, the pressure is on a little bit. They need to make sure that they get both of these locked down. And last time around, if you remember, G2's attack onto T and Karaoke, they got the diffuser down using the Sense gadget to create the space to get in and do it, but they were just a little bit ahead of themselves. They weren't quite prepared for what came after that diffuser going down, and BDS were able to hit them on the retake. If they're a bit more prepared, then maybe they could have done something. But no, again, I feel like G2 have just gone in ahead of themselves. They're not aware of P4, who just shoots Alamo in the back. Your blitz has gone. The tip of the spear is taken off, and G2 now on the back foot.
Like the idea, lock it off, don't give them way back into terrace. That's all well and good. But I think it's just the expectation that they could charge in and Alamo could carry on rolling on through without any response was a bit of a catastrophic one, because as you're stating, they lose that tip of the spear. It's 5v3 to BDS. They should not be giving away this kind of multi-man advantage situation. This is going to be a 5-5.
Yeah, you would expect so at this point. 5 versus 3 now. Looking at who you've got to create an opportunity to execute onto site, you don't really have much utility that's going to help you to do that. Doki's got one Claymore left in hand. Your blowtorch from Maverick isn't really going to do much. You're focusing on those Raura gates, really, if you want to create an opportunity to put the diffuser down. So with 1 minute 15 left to go, I think for the time being at least, G2 need to focus on finding some kills here. They've got to level things up, maybe get themselves a man advantage, keep stomping on the board so they've got that utility to play behind if the opportunity presents itself. But first and foremost, treat this as if you've got to get all 5 kills.
They get the finish off at the very least, but I think as you say, Tim, you're very right. They've got to get all 5 here between the 3 of them. Probably being a bit of a consolation prize for the slaughter that took place over towards this side of the map, because now you've got to deal with the setup coming out from the side of BDS. They've got themselves locked in here. Obviously in a spot where maybe you're starting to consider that potentially they've got to now send the Maverick outside to go and deal with the electrified reinforced wall. Like, it's going to be so ugly to deal with. Blaz gets one more bat, though. Suddenly, again, you're starting to ask that question, what if, Tim? Just what if?
The problem they've got is Stompin's not in a great position here because he's on the other side. You can see his silhouette there. Because he's out in drum, they're not going to have access to that utility. He has to come across that area that's being held by BDS, and it's going to be tough to create that safety. However, Blaz has really created some space with a double kill. He's going to start putting the diffuser down. BDS see him and are able to stop it. That leaves Stompin with no opportunity to do anything other than grab that diffuser and try and put it down. It's an easy finish for BDS. If they'd been able, G2, to get in there a little bit quicker, get those Raura gates out, they might have just had that safety that they needed. If there's a Raura gate, and this is what I was saying, Stompin, he was on the drum side, and I'm not criticising that position. It's where he'd come from, and it's where he kind of needed to be. But if you've got your Raura on Geisha side, or even on Karaoke window, they can put the gate on that door, and then all of a sudden Blaz is safe to put that diffuser down. It was Blaz who got the kills coming in, so it's a tough one. It was a tough one. It was always a big ask at 3 versus 5. You know, G2 were close to doing it. They deserve, you know, a nod for that. But BDS, they played it well. It was a little bit closer than they might have liked, but still, they get the job done. A nice 1v2 to close it out. They level things up 5-5, but it's a little bit of a shot across the bow, a little bit of a warning for them that maybe it won't be all their own way to get to overtime here, and that G2 might just have something in the tank for this attack.
I'm enjoying seeing the use of Raura. A number of teams have started playing them now that we're into the stage, and I've enjoyed seeing the use cases, the ideas behind it. Just a few times more execution is probably needed to demonstrate the real efficacy of that operator. We saw during the break the SAL breakdown from Jack and from Leo, where they were talking about how things were played out over there by Loss against Loud. It was a really cool use, but again, limited use cases I think that we've seen most teams deploy so far. But again, it's quite a new operator. It'll take a little bit of time to see them really build into, you know, top level, like, wow, this is a perfect execute. There is nothing the other side can do about it. We're still waiting to see that development, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, you know, you never want an operator in this game that's useful on every single site, all of the time, for every single plan. You know, that's not what you want, because that would be overpowered. So, yeah, I think, you know, when we've seen it used, it's been used to good effect. But, like you say, maybe a little bit limited so far. But we're going to have bandit tricking going on by the looks of it. I'm not sure how successful that's going to be, given the Maverick line in the bottom of it. But there's not really much on the side of G2 to do anything about that anyway. They've no hard breach.
They've done their best there to try and get it opened up by taking out parts of the bottom parts, stopping to seeing all the reinforcement fall away, but they've absolutely mucked it up, so they can't make use of VIP now. They're going to have to try and make something a bit more standard work, I imagine. But BDS are the ones that are dug in. They're under no real pressure right now. Doki's going to fall down here on the Deimos. It's starting to look a bit ropey. G2 could find themselves on the wrong end of match point.
Yep, and this is why, you know, I said in the Falcons game, this is why I like the triple hard breach ban, because it just forces teams onto the back foot and it really slows them down. You can bring along those secondary gadgets, which G2 have chose not to do, but they are pretty easily tricked away and pretty easily dealt with. So very, very tough to do anything when you lose all three of those sort of primary hard breaches and have to rely on the Mav. Stompin does manage to pick up Lasmo. 4 versus 4. We've got a little bit of bullying going on with Alamau on that shield, and that's what G2 need to do. If you're going to take away the hard breaches, fine, but we're now going to abuse the shields. We're now going to abuse what you have left as 3 versus 3 as Alamau manages to find one. Blaz comes in strong again, taking down Freck. 1 minute left to go. G2 have somehow just turned the round on its head, Des. They get kill after kill. Don't worry about getting site control. And they are the ones, and I said it was coming, that managed to get themselves onto the match point opportunity. BDS, they might just see this opportunity to get to overtime sail past them.
That was a bit too much from BDS, I think, there. Let's have a listen.
You guys have good ideas, okay? Like, so far, those are really good ideas. What's going on with our late rounds, it's simply that we are sitting in our positions, right? Like, we're waiting for it to happen. They're very slow, mostly because of the map and what we're causing them to do. So they're very slow, great. Now they're the late rounds. We need to make our late round less predictable. So either we can retake position, we can retake space, play with verticality like we talked about before the game, or we can swap a little bit some of our comp or the position of our traps, okay? But we need to have a plan for our late rounds, okay? They're just gonna synchronize and push on those late rounds, push our strong position and get the gunfights there. All right, chill the comms, chill the voices.
All very spot on. The thing I was going to say before we jumped into it then was that for BDS, that was a little bit too aggressive. They were, like for G2, there was no one except Blaz actually inside the building as far as I'm aware. He was on the house stairs looking to come for a backstab later on. Look at this moment here, look, like they're not really under any immense amount of pressure, I think, unless they get a kill up towards house side of things, but it all just crumbles. Like they, you can tell Doki's very happy about it. They were so keen to stop the Monty push coming on through before they were even inside the building, and it just felt a bit too heavy. Would have maybe liked to see them back off a bit there, concede some space. No, I'm not going to say that I predicted what Leland was going to talk about, but they're talking about retaking space later. That could have been fine. Disappear into the bowels of the map a little bit and give G2 something to have to chase it down or worry about later on, but they've largely given G2 here the opportunity to get up to match point, and now BDS have got to fight their way back in to send us to overtime.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one to control as a player. You know, it's very easy to get drawn into those gunfights. You know, if you're getting told, right, 2 of them are on drum door and there's maybe, you know, you're naturally kind of just peeking onto it or onto terrace door. So, you know, you're naturally thinking, right, I'm going to go, I could win the round here. If I go and take Alamau out on the Monte, I win the round for us. And I think it is easy to get drawn into those fights. But like you say, I think sometimes on defense, you just got to remember that the clock is working in your favor. Don't give them anything. Let them play. You know, they're the ones on the attack that have to, or most of the time, have to take that onus to get in and to get aggressive. Just having a look to see if we can find anything underneath this. I don't think G2 are going to give anything away. Blaz nearly giving a little look at the boots, the soles of his boots there, but just got away with it.
Yeah, trying to get anything to remove the... It's a weird one. They were trying to move the reinforcement, I'm pretty sure. Like Alamau, the book certainly leans in towards that, but they've not had much of the option to do it. At the very least, he's got him below and opened up that floor, I expect, and force P4 backwards.
I think
And the thing is,
that's it. It's more wanting to force players out of VIP. That man ball, even in the bottom, you're going to think if they're on rappel, maybe they get an angle underneath, or they lead prone on the balcony. It just makes people uncomfortable to play inside of there. I think that's more the aim.
But now no one's gone down too early on. Again, you heard Leland talking about the slow nature of G2 on these attacks. May it build into that. That's an unfortunate moment to look away for Doki. Oh, but he hits the shot. It's the second. Robbie and Freck both eviscerated by the Scots. And G2 could now be on a path to win this, Tim. They've got half the round to play in a 5v3. This has to be theirs.
Doki only 6 kills up to this point, but wakes up exactly when G2 need him with a beautiful double. Lasmo, however, says anything you can do, I can at least match. Alamau manages to find one. Virtue takes down Doki. All of a sudden, it's Lyra and Alamau versus Virtue and Lasmo. 2 versus 2. A minute left on the clock. There is time here for G2. Not much in terms of intel. Lasmo finds a third. BDS, they want this overtime, Des.
And they might find it as well. He's down on the deck. He doesn't know that he's down like a rat. Goes for Virtue and doesn't find it. G2 throw away the 5 versus 3. And in we go to overtime. I knew that was on the back of that damn pillow.
We are going to overtime, Des. We are indeed. 6-6 it stands at the minute, and we're going to have at least 2 extra rounds, maybe 3, and I love it because these last 2 rounds have been brilliant. What about that? Doki opens it up with a double. You think, yeah, G2 have got this. They go into the top of the table, but then Lasmo wakes up and drops a triple himself, and all of a sudden, it is all bets are off. This is anybody's.
Wow, wow, wow. Here we are. Laura saw his name up in lights on his birthday. Just could not find the kills that he needed to give G2 the 7-5. So one thing now is at least guaranteed, Tim. They will drop points. Both teams walk away with at least 1 point because we're in overtime. The winner of these next 3 rounds, or this little best of 3 we step into, they walk away with 2. And by the looks of it, I think Virtue is DC, maybe. So maybe we'll have to find a rehost on the way. But no, I think we're all good, actually. We're cracking on. So yes. Everyone gets to walk away with something. There are no real losers here per se, but someone's still got to walk away with the lion's share of the points.
In terms of the table, let's have a look. Yeah, the best that G2 can do now is to match Secret on 10. So it'll come, and I'm not going to do the quick maths and stuff off the top of my head as to what the tiebreakers are. We tend to look to that, you know, more towards the end of the stage when decisions are being made. But yeah, they'll be joint top effectively. You know, one of them will no doubt have a round difference or a direct result or something that will take them above. But that's the best they can hope for now, where they could have been a point clear previously.
Well, the box has made its glorious return in case you want to see what it can do in a Blackbeard, although the lineup itself has got 2 shields being brought along, both Stompin and Alamau donning those operators here. And if nothing else, Vita, when you see double shields coming out after you've not really played them all through your attacking half, it just screams a little bit of caution, a little bit of nervousness here that you need to slow things down even further and just make sure you've got control.
Yeah, we saw Stompin on the Blackbeard last time on this site. Didn't have too much of an impact, if you remember. He came up black stairs, tried to make a challenge, and was taken down. I think it was Freck. Hit a brilliant shot, to be fair, over the top of the shield as soon as he brought it down. But this time it's going to be a slightly different approach. Alamau is the one going up black stairs, and then Stompin's coming in from the terrace door. They're then going to join up and try to push forward and take a little bit of ground. They do manage to get an opener onto P4 as well. That's the bandit taken down, but Freck and Robbie get one apiece. BDS have done this so well. They've fought their way back into round after round when they've had that sort of man deficit. It's been great from them.
And here we go, and the Shield stepping on their way through. As you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, they push their way through Stompin, getting rid of Virtue at least on that step in. It's a 3v3, and the cover should now be established for Alamau to be able to complete this off, but no! Lasmo's got the reverse angle, takes Stompin down, steps forward for Alamau, and he's going to put BDS up to match point unless Blaz can go absolutely nuclear.
He cannot. As Lasmo manages to cut him down, as you say, it's going to be BDS that get at least 2 opportunities to close this one out. G2 will get 1 more chance at best, and that is if they are able to win the next round. So BDS, they can win it by winning round 12, or they can win it by taking round 13. 2 opportunities for them now. BDS looking good in that round. Again, G2 creating that little bit of space. There's that opportunity where you thought, you know what, maybe they do this. Maybe they get in here and get the diffuser down. They've got a little bit of cover. But it just, again, didn't happen. Felt like they were maybe slightly ahead of themselves and they hadn't accounted for Lasmo coming in, maybe not aware of his position, didn't win the gunfight, and it just left them exposed. There you go. Unaware, I think, of Lasmo being in a position to do that damage, and he's able to close out the round. He's had a really big few rounds as Lasmo as well.
Yeah, he has, and that round there, I think, came down to the fact that there was a smoke between him and Stompin, and of course, on the Warden, he's going to know what's going down, got himself a freebie. Still, it's BDS that have clawed their way back. They were down 6 and 5. It looked like G2 were going to push on for the win, but now it's BDS in the driving seat, and G2 cannot make any more mistakes. 2 chances to win this out. They lose this, Tim. They find themselves sticking in 3rd place as the day wears on. With Stevie Secret and Falcons that currently sit above them. If BDS win this, they move up to 6 points. Don't move anywhere in the table. They stay sat in 6th place, but it does at least give them a little bit of a gap to both Gen.G and Wild, and also starts to pull them ahead of Fnatic and Wolves at the same time. It feels kind of crazy to already be talking about playoffs, but as of today, we're essentially halfway through the stage. Like, we'll have had 4 out of our 9 games done. This is where you've got to start looking now at how the table falls and starting to say to those teams at the bottom, you're probably going to struggle to fight your way back in here. And those at the top, they've still got to cement themselves in. But it'll be a real battle for those top 2 spots to see who gets that first round bye when we get into playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've been saying for years. You know, these stages pass you by quickly. And if you come out with 2 or 3 losses to begin with, there isn't always too much left to play for. You know, there's usually a chance, yeah, maybe you can get yourself up into 5th, 6th, but it becomes a real fight. It's so essential to, when you've got 9 games to play, it is so essential that you get in here and get yourself a really strong start. G2 have done that. BDS, of course, looking to improve upon what they've had so far already. 2 rounds maximum left to play out before we know who takes the lion's share of the points. BDS are on the attack. They are attacking onto Office and Exhibition. If we just have a look at how they did when BDS were defending, they won this in round 1 all the way back at the start of the game. They were able to win this site, but not the second time that that G2 went back in round 4.
Alamal's getting rounded on here. He's going to be in hot water if he's not careful. Robbie can always get a track on him if they're uncertain as well. Bit of an assist coming in. It's like layers upon layers. A game of chess. He really wants to swing this, but so far not being given the chance. And sure enough, it's Blaz to start things off as Robbie falls.
A great opener for G2. There's another one, but they've been in this position. G2 fans, don't get too excited yet. 5 versus 3. Here comes Lasmo. We've seen this before. Takes down Alamo, brings it back to 3 versus 4, but this time takes a lot of damage along the way. Can he put that DMR to any more use? 13 and 7 at the minute for Lasmo. We've also got Blaz and Stompin on low health on the side of G2, so it is not plain sailing yet.
Oh, man. I mean, a DMR, it's all you got to do is click on the head, Tim. It's all it takes, no matter how much HP you've got. But right call here for BDS. You can afford to pause things. You've still got Candelas to play behind here. You've got the resources to make this happen. A smoke going out deep and a bit of a spray coming on through. Not a bad idea, as I think it was Doki that was sat just on the other side of that. Loses no life in the process. And now G2 have got to stall things out. Stompin has still got 2 smokes to play behind. There's a C4. They've got enough to hold them at bay here. And Blaz might have a side swipe on.
Yeah, this is going to be free, I think, for Blaz. I'm not sure Lasmo's aware of his position. Blaz certainly was. Picks up the kill, and with 10 seconds left to go, surely that is all she wrote for this. And we are going to be going all the way to 15, Des, as the kills rain in. Doki gets a double, and G2 take us the distance.
All right, big round coming up here for G2. They win this one. They jump to the top of the table. They lose it. Well, they find themselves still stuck down in 2nd place. Sorry, in 3rd place. Secret and Falcons both being sat above them. It's quite pivotal for them. I've already remarked it doesn't make a massive difference to BDS today, but it can matter an awful lot as you get towards the end of the stage. And to give BDS credit, we said at the start, you know, bringing G2 to Skyscraper, you've got to be cooking something. They've come out here and played incredibly well on a map that many consider G2 relatively untouchable on. I think regardless of what they walk away with, saying we took a point off G2, you'll feel good about that and your chances of being a top 6 team come playoffs.
100%. And BDS are, you know, definitely one of those teams that we've spoken about that's like a little bit of a, I don't know if I want to describe them as a project team, but, you know, there's a lot of experience in the team, but it's a team that has been put together, staffing, you know, they've sort of come from all over the place, and there's work for them to do. So like you say, to already be in a position in stage 1 to be taking points off G2, who've played really well through the first few play days, yeah, big achievement for them, big achievement, and a lot that they can take away from it. So we've got 3 minutes between us and a result, one way or another. Both, it's been like a tug of war between these two teams. They've both had solid anchors, putting their full weight behind this one, trying to keep them alive. You've had Blaz on one side, you've had Lasmo on the other, and then everybody else just pitching in and trying to shift that other team in their direction. Right now, we have absolutely no idea who's going to take this over the line in round 15.
It's been really hard, hasn't it? Just seeing both teams go back and forth. A few rounds definitely that we'll look back on and say, wow, imagine if we won that clutch. Imagine if this went that way. Imagine if this thing happened over there. Very much spun on a dime, and I think it's only fair that we get all the way to 15 to see how things land. Here we go, though. 2.5 minutes to separate these two teams, and potentially 2 points, and one of them walking away with one. Looking more towards Laura being on, I'd like to say, sat here on this Ying. Of course, those Candelas really can sing and make a difference inside a site itself. Lots of smokes to play behind too. Just tons of utility in general, but you can't be almost losing players too early on. Laz almost getting bitten off by that exhibition window.
Yeah, we saw the same rat spot from Lasmo previously, and as G2 hadn't picked up on it, he took the opportunity to be able to use it again, but wasn't as successful as he might have liked. Blaz getting away with that one. A little bit of pressure coming from Alamau underneath. Going to be using that skeleton key, first of all, to take utility out, and now to try and remove those safe spots, try and remove those rotation options by getting lines of sight onto the doorways and making it as difficult as possible. G2 stacked up on that balcony wall. They're going to open it up. A minute 30. They've got time. They need, it feels they need those opening kills.
It's the drones, though, Tim. They've got basically no information. It's why they're being so careful on, you know, Alamar pre-firing house stairs. And a second ago, and you saw the same coming into the breach. They just don't really have any massive information. This may well be the last look they get at site before they step in and try to hit it. It's tucked into the corner. And here comes that trap from the Deimos as we get towards the last 60 seconds. Loki hoping to try and hunt from below, it seems.
Now or never for G2. No. Unfortunate timing for Virtue, but the round continues. G2, they need a catalyst. They need a spark that's going to push them forward, and you feel like it's going to be picking up that first kill. 50 seconds left. Need to be careful that they don't stall out here. BDS, they're just holding their positions. They're just using those lines of sight to wait for G2 to filter on in. 40 seconds left to go. Stomping continues to dance around that breach, but hasn't gone in as of yet. Nade is going to force some movement, but it's Lasmo who manages to get a big kill again. 4 versus 4. 30 seconds,
They've done nothing here, G2. They've just sat and waited this whole time and may now be about to pay the price in the form of the clock. Lasmo into another. It's a trade back down to a 3 versus 2. Freck started out so strong in this map. Can he hold on as the C4 comes on through? Laura not being caught out. Alamau finished off. It's a 2v2 and Freck gets the double. It doesn't matter, they're in a 4 versus 5. They take the win. They take 2 points. And G2 are going to be kicking themselves. They couldn't convert that 5v4.